Welcome to Daily Stoic, where we explore the profound insights of philosophy to navigate the complexities of life. Today we dive into one of Friedrich Nietzsche's most provocative ideas, the subtle yet pervasive danger of seeking comfort over confronting the unknown. In his preface to Genealogy of Morality, Nietzsche warns of the silent forces that trap us in mediocrity, preventing us from realizing our full potential. These forces, he argues, are the very fabric of a regressive morality that stifles greatness and binds us to a life of conformity. If you're ready to challenge the norms and delve into the heart of Nietzsche's bold philosophy, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Daily Stoic. Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's start a conversation about what it means to rise above the herd and pursue true excellence. Join us next time as we continue to explore the ideas that have shaped the minds of history's greatest thinkers. In the preface to his seminal work Genealogy of Morality, Friedrich Nietzsche offers a haunting observation. How many good men have been cast down by a regressive trait that has subordinated their present to their future? A poison, a whim, a narcotic, a temptation, anything that leads them to seek refuge in the trap of comfort? Nietzsche's words pierce through the veneer of complacency, revealing a profound truth about human nature. Those who avoid the uncertainties of life, who seek solace in comfort rather than confronting the unknown, ultimately suffocate the very essence of their being. In doing so, they allow a certain morality, one that is regressive and limiting, to take root and prevent them from realizing their full potential. This morality, Nietzsche warns, is the danger of all dangers, a silent force that binds individuals to mediocrity and stifles the spark of greatness within them. As we delve into the heart of today's discussion, it becomes clear that the subject at hand is perhaps the most controversial I have ever presented. Nietzsche, as always, stands at the epicenter of philosophical provocation, challenging the very foundations of our moral understanding. Is there truly a higher type of human being, one who transcends the masses? And is there a morality that can be deemed superior to all others? Nietzsche's boldness in addressing these questions forces us to confront uncomfortable truths. I invite you to join me as a messenger, yes, a mere conveyor of ideas, before I offer my personal reflections at the end. Welcome to an exploration of what Nietzsche might call the psychology of the herd. Most people, Nietzsche argues, never question the moral codes they inherit. Their approach to morality is largely unexamined, automatic, and uncritical, as they merely echo the prevailing opinions, rumors, and value judgments of society, treating them as though they were absolute truths. This unthinking adherence to societal norms, according to Nietzsche, is deeply problematic. The dominant morality in the West, he suggests, is antithetical to the vital instincts of the human being, making it not only harmful, but the most insidious of dangers. It exerts a relentless pressure on all individuals, even those with the potential to rise above mediocrity, to conform, to become nothing more than diminutive, mediocre herd animals, whose only goal is to fulfill the expectations of others. In doing so, they become mere shadows of what they might have been, their potential greatness lost to the demands of conformity. But how has this pernicious morality taken such a firm hold on modern civilization? To understand this, Nietzsche divides humanity into two radically opposed types in Beyond Good and Evil, the superior and the herd. The superior man, Nietzsche posits, is one who possesses an extraordinary capacity to master his visceral impulses, coupled with a noble ambition to deepen his knowledge and values from a broad historical perspective. His life is a cohesive project, rich with purpose and driven by high ideals that compel him to persevere in his endeavors. As Nietzsche elaborates in Human All Too Human, the superior man is acutely aware that the intrinsic value of long-term gratification far outweighs the fleeting pleasure of instant rewards. In contrast, the modern individual is obsessed with reaping the fruits of the tree as quickly as possible, neglecting the more arduous task of planting new trees that will bear fruit in the future. This impatience, Nietzsche argues, is the clearest sign of the decay of humanity. While the ordinary man, absorbed in the trivialities of daily life, might tell himself, "Life is short, and I must indulge every fleeting pleasure," the superior man perceives the brevity of existence through a far more expansive lens. Life is short, and I must leave an indelible mark before my time is done. This broader, more profound perspective compels the superior individual to value his presence in the world not as an end in itself, but as a means of transcending the mundane existence of the herd. He understands that to rise above the masses, he must cultivate the inner faculties of concentration, foresight, and creativity, qualities that the average man, in his haste for immediate gratification, often neglects or dismisses. Nietzsche, in his wisdom, reminds us that excellence requires spending time in solitude to cultivate the intellectual and spiritual gifts that the herd discards outright. In the stillness of solitude, the superior man finds the autonomy necessary to shape his destiny on his own terms. It is here, away from the cacophony of external opinions, that he builds resilience, detaching his sense of self-worth from the fleeting judgments of others. Whether praised or criticized, he remains unmoved, recognizing that the opinions of the ignorant have no bearing on his journey towards self-realization. Praise and reproach, in this light, are but two sides of the same coin, superficial and ultimately irrelevant to the one who seeks to carve out a path of true significance. As Nietzsche further elucidates in Will to Power, the superior man's sense of justice is rooted in something far deeper than the approval or disapproval of others. It is an unwavering commitment to his own principles, impervious to the fickle tides of public opinion. His sense of justice, like his pursuit of excellence, is beyond appeal, untouched by the transient concerns that preoccupy lesser minds. It is crucial to recognize that one need not be a singular genius, renowned for world-changing discoveries or masterpieces, to belong to the echelon of superior individuals. The notion of greatness is not confined to those few whose names are etched in history. Indeed, these figures, whether they be a Marie Curie, an Albert Einstein, a Bill Gates, or a Gabriel Garcia Marquez, are often the result of a unique convergence of genetics, environment, culture, education, and serendipity. Yet alongside these towering figures exists a broader cohort of individuals who, though perhaps less visible in the public eye, share the same qualities that distinguish the truly great from the ordinary. To contribute meaningfully to any field, be it chemistry, physics, technology, or literature, one need not be the most celebrated name. What matters is acting with a clear sense of purpose, unwavering determination, and a steadfast belief in the future, particularly when life throws its inevitable challenges. It is through this resolute approach to life's trials that one forges the identity of a superior individual, an identity that, when reflected in the mirror, evokes a deep sense of pride rather than dissatisfaction. The true measure of superiority lies not in the accolades one receives, but in the inner strength and clarity with which one navigates the complexities of life. Within the vast expanse of the herd, individuals can be divided into two distinct classes, each representing different manifestations of mediocrity. The first is what Nietzsche describes as the last man, a figure who embodies the very essence of mediocrity. The term itself, derived from the Latin medius, meaning middle or central, and acris, meaning mountain or steep rock, captures the essence of this individual, a being who has ascended only halfway up the mountain of life, content to remain at a middling height. The last man is one who lives for comfort and hedonistic pleasure, his ambitions never rising above the horizon of immediate gratification. His life is defined by complacency, laziness, and a shallow pursuit of activities that ensure his subsistence but do little to elevate his soul. Bereft of creative impulse and ignorant of the values that guide the pursuit of higher goals, this figure epitomizes the stagnation of human potential. Tragically, this class of individuals makes up the overwhelming majority of society. However, Nietzsche identifies an even more troubling figure within the herd, the slave. The slave is not merely mediocre, but embodies a deeper, more insidious form of human degeneration. He is a weak and sickly being, burdened by his own existence and consumed by a deadly poison, resentment. This resentment is not a mere fleeting emotion, but a profound and enduring hatred toward life itself, born out of a crippling sense of powerlessness in the face of reality. The world for the slave is a hostile, punitive, and overwhelming place, a landscape fraught with threats and dangers that seem insurmountable. In response to this perceived hostility, the slave retreats into various vices, seeking solace in excesses that far surpass those of the merely mediocre. Nietzsche, in Beyond Good and Evil, does not shy away from harsh truths, asserting that within humanity, as within the rest of the animal kingdom, there exists an excess of sick, degenerate, and failed individuals whose only possible fate is to suffer. Success, he contends, is the rare exception, not the rule. This grim reality underscores the depth of Nietzsche's critique as he lays bare the inherent flaws and limitations of the human condition. The slave's resentment is not a passive state. It festers and transforms into a corrosive envy directed toward those who do not share in his suffering, those whom Nietzsche would classify as superior humans. This latent rancor does not merely simmer beneath the surface, but drives the slave to actively seek revenge against those who embody excellence and vitality. Under the guise of equality, the slave channels his envy into a campaign to drag the superior down to his level, to make them share in his misery and mediocrity. This is accomplished through the construction of a decadent and debilitating morality, a morality that is not life-affirming, but life-denying. It is a system of values that restricts, weakens, and ultimately corrodes the spirit, one that the slave imposes on others with the force of moral righteousness. Anyone who refuses to adopt this moral framework is branded as perverse, evil, or apathetic, seen as a threat to the status quo and the fragile comfort of the herd. But Nietzsche sees through this facade, recognizing it for what it truly is, hypocrisy of the highest order. In Ecce Homo, he boldly asserts that there is no morality more pernicious than one that strips a man of his true self, forcing him into a state of decadence and decay. The slave, in his twisted logic, seeks not only to drag others down, but also to justify his own miserable existence by ensuring that no one else can rise above it. He is, in essence, a being who is screwed by his own failings and limitations, and because he cannot find a way out of his predicament, he seeks to screw others over in a futile attempt to alleviate his own suffering. The last man, though bound by vice, does not necessarily seek to harm others. His indulgence in comfort and pleasure is self-contained. The slave, however, harbors a more destructive intent. He wishes to devalue others in order to feel better about himself, to bring down the higher to his level so that his own inadequacies are less glaring by comparison. In Nietzsche's view, the slave's morality is not just a personal failing, but a societal menace, one that threatens to stifle greatness and reduce all to the lowest common denominator. This, Nietzsche warns, is the true danger of the herd mentality, a force that seeks to erase distinction, excellence, and individuality in favor of mediocrity and conformity. Slaves, in their cunning, cloak themselves in the guise of justiciars, brandishing banners of equality. Yet their morality is so fragile and hollow that it inevitably collapses upon itself. Where the mediocre man seeks to assert certain rights from a position of relative sanity, the slave wields these claims as tools of chaos, sowing seeds of social discord. The slave loudly proclaims that superior individuals harbor a belief in their own superiority over others. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding. As previously mentioned, the superior man is utterly indifferent to the existence or opinions of the slaves. It is the slaves, in fact, who perceive themselves as inferior, plagued by insecurities and incapable of adapting to a world they neither understand nor control. Their true intentions are pitifully simple. If I cannot possess something, no one else should. If I cannot accomplish something, no one else must either. If I cannot attain something, it should remain out of reach for all. Such sentiments might strike some as elitist, arrogant, or pretentious, but Nietzsche was never one to seek the approval of the masses. From the very beginning, he made it clear that his philosophy was not crafted for popular acceptance. Rather, it was a radical call to liberate the world from its deep moral malaise. The psychology of the herd, Nietzsche warned, is the most insidious of dangers precisely because of its seductive power. It lures in well-meaning individuals who have yet to find their true place in the world, tempting them with the easy path, the path of least resistance. These individuals, who might otherwise have harnessed their talents, skills, and inherent qualities to achieve greatness, are instead drawn into the comforting embrace of mediocrity. The morality of the herd preys on future geniuses, exploiting their moments of doubt, confusion, and existential uncertainty. Rather than encouraging them to push through these trials, the herd entices them toward comfort, complaint, and complacency. Nietzsche, in his Will to Power, likens this herd morality to the siren's call, a beguiling voice that seeks to derail the superior individual in the midst of his ascent. It whispers temptations, urging him to abandon his burdensome destiny, to take refuge in the warm, familiar arms of mediocrity. Why struggle, it coos, when you can indulge in the pleasures of life right here, right now? If such a philosophy were to gain widespread acceptance, it would herald the onset of the most virulent form of nihilism. In such a world, the values of excellence, creativity, determination, and critical thinking would vanish, leaving behind a barren landscape where conformity and mediocrity reign supreme. Humanity, stripped of its potential, would be reduced to mere pawns, clones of clones, indistinguishable members of a mindless herd. As Nietzsche ominously suggests in his Genealogy of Morality, the situation is indeed deteriorating. Society is sliding into a prototype of humanity that is more comfortable, conformist, indifferent, ignorant, weak, fearful, and mediocre. This, he argues, is the greatest tragedy of all. In tandem with the fear of man, we have lost our capacity to love, revere, and hope for humanity's potential. All that remains is the bleak image of a faltering man, a shadow of what he could have been. Is this not the very essence of modern nihilism? A weariness with humanity itself, a resignation to mediocrity? Modern psychology, with its myriad interpretations, often finds itself at odds with Nietzsche's stark morality. The concept of the superior man seems discordant with contemporary discourse, too aggressive, ambiguous, and, to many, narcissistic. This is compounded by the pervasive hypersensitivity that characterizes today's society. The mere suggestion that there could be superior and inferior men is enough to spark outrage. And yet, I would assert this truth without hesitation, for I place truth above the trappings of political correctness. Still, while I find much to agree with in Nietzsche's philosophy, I acknowledge that the term superior man may not be the most fitting expression, particularly from a psychological and semantic perspective. It is a term fraught with complexity, one that does not fully encapsulate the nuances of human potential and worth. Even so, the essence of Nietzsche's critique remains powerful and profoundly relevant, a challenge to the complacency and mediocrity that threaten to engulf the human spirit. First and foremost, when we speak of superiority, the question arises, superior in relation to what? In any meaningful comparison, whether we label something or someone as superior or inferior, it is essential to establish a unit of measurement, qualitative or quantitative, by which we can fairly assess and contrast different entities. For instance, we might observe that a black table is wider than a white one, using width as our metric. Similarly, it is indisputable that some individuals may surpass others in height, empathy, wealth, or logical mathematical intelligence. But what criterion should we employ when considering whether a person is superior in the broadest and most comprehensive sense? Should we measure superiority by power, happiness, intelligence, strength, or perhaps by benevolence? Herein lies the crux of the issue. The standards by which we judge superiority are inherently subjective, deeply influenced by personal values and individual preferences. What one person might admire or value in another could differ vastly from someone else's perspective. It seems reasonable to assume that when Nietzsche speaks of superiority, he is referring to moral superiority. But does the fact that a particular morality is ideal for me necessarily mean it is ideal for everyone else? Does a morality that serves the majority well automatically qualify as the best possible morality? Not necessarily. It is important to clarify that in raising these questions, I am not advocating for moral relativism or nihilism, nor am I suggesting that there is a single, universal moral code that reigns supreme over all others, as Nietzsche might imply with his concept of the superior man. What I believe, rather, is that there exists a diverse spectrum of moral frameworks that are far more functional, adaptive, and suitable in various contexts, and that these frameworks can, in fact, coexist and complement one another. Let us examine the moral code that Nietzsche attributes to the superior man. Is this code truly as ideal as he suggests? There are certainly elements of it that resonate deeply with me. Creativity, perseverance, discipline, self-control, and autonomy are all qualities I wholeheartedly endorse. Nietzsche rightly identifies these as fundamental attributes of a person who is capable of independent, critical, and analytical thought. Someone who can produce extraordinary works of art and contribute significantly to the progress of humanity. From a psychological and social perspective, it is clear that the morality of the superior man is far more constructive and eloquent than that of the slave, a creature mired in conflict with himself and others, unable to truly live or let live. However, does this mean we can confidently claim that those Nietzsche deems superior are entirely free from vices as damaging as those found among the mediocre? My answer would be no. The way Nietzsche defines the superior individual and the last man does not protect the former from the possibility of mental disorders, nor does it doom the latter to a life of emotional instability. According to Nietzsche's description, personality disorders such as antisocial, narcissistic, or obsessive-compulsive tendencies could be perfectly compatible with excellence. Yet this notion is problematic from a psychological standpoint, bordering on absurdity. Likewise, the last man, though highly conformist, might have chosen a more peaceful, laid-back, and simple way of life because it aligns with his personal preferences and contentment. It is important to recognize that being an ordinary or mediocre person does not inherently signal a life of misery and stagnation. Can we truly consider a person godlike or superior if they are manipulative, twisted, and indifferent to the emotions of those around them? No matter how hardworking, intelligent, or versatile they may be, if they lack the social and emotional skills necessary to maintain psychological balance in other aspects of life, they fall short of being a genuine role model. We might be describing a highly successful entrepreneur in the business world, but if their success comes at the cost of profound loneliness in their personal life, their mental health may suffer as much as someone surrounded by negligent slaves. In my view, the morality of a superior psychopath holds little, if any, true superiority over that of a mediocre altruist. Of course, not all individuals who might be considered superior fall into this category, but according to Nietzsche's description, it is possible that they may lack an essential component: emotional intelligence. And what of mediocrity? The logic here remains much the same. There are individuals whose very nature inclines them to delegate responsibilities to others, fully understanding that in doing so, they surrender a portion of their power and autonomy. A person who may not be particularly creative, independent, or resilient might still embody virtues such as empathy, generosity, or kindness. I find no inherent issue with mediocrity, provided it is embraced consciously, willingly, and with a clear sense of purpose. The real problem arises when mediocrity is imposed upon someone against their will, when they suffer under its weight and seek solace in complaints, lamentations, or vices as a means of coping with the resulting existential discontent. It is precisely this type of individual that Nietzsche critiques: those who have been tamed, trained, and rendered feeble, individuals who once held the potential for greatness, but have become, in Nietzsche's words, mere shadows of what they could become. Indeed, Nietzsche's observations about mediocrity resonate with a significant portion of humanity. Mediocrity is not immune to the pitfalls of various personality disorders, such as dependency or histrionics, nor is it safe from the clutches of mental illnesses like major depression, generalized anxiety, or chronic stress. The philosophy of mediocrity ensnares countless people, trapping them in lives that fall far short of their potential, thus diminishing their overall satisfaction with life. For me, the fear of slipping into the mold of the last man is profound, not because I oppose mediocrity itself, but because I recognize that accepting less than what I am capable of becoming would lead to deep unhappiness. Undoubtedly, one of Friedrich Nietzsche's most compelling achievements is his dissection of the morality of the herd. The herd mentality is very real, and it is expanding at an alarming rate. Increasingly, individuals unthinkingly replicate the beliefs and narratives of their parents, friends, and media icons without first examining the validity of these ideas. They behave like sheep, lacking the capacity to evaluate situations critically or make independent decisions. Even more concerning is the mindset of the slave, who is not merely content with blending into the herd, but actively seeks to extinguish all forms of excellence, talent, and nonconformity. How many times have you been discouraged from pursuing a bold and ambitious goal? How often have you encountered envy for achieving success through hard work? How frequently have you faced rejection for adopting behavior that deviates from the norm? And how many times have you been criticized simply for expressing an opinion that diverges from the mainstream? Nietzsche's depiction of the slave is strikingly accurate. These are unbalanced, chaotic individuals who often create turmoil in their external environment to mirror the disorder within themselves. You might think Nietzsche's objective is to impose his moral framework upon everyone, but isn't this precisely the mistake that others have made, forcing change upon others? Superior individuals would be guilty of the same error as slaves if they attempted to impose their specific moral vision upon others by force. Moral evolution, however, is possible, and throughout this discourse, I have outlined some of the key factors that contribute to such evolution. Yet Nietzsche also highlights a crucial element that cannot be overlooked: introspection. We will delve deeper into this topic in the future, should the interest arise. As I close, I recall the words of Lucius. We all share the same destiny, the grave. To force another to live by predetermined standards is to squander our most precious resource, time. Suggest, teach, propose, but never force. Live according to your own beliefs and let others live according to theirs. If you were to ask my opinion, I would say that not everyone is destined for excellence, and that is not inherently negative. In fact, mediocrity is a necessary condition for the existence of excellence. If everyone were excellent, the very concept of excellence would lose all meaning. Simply striving for it, dear viewer, is an achievement in itself.